Thank you.
Okay, good.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like we have plenty for a quorum.
Looks like everybody's here.
That's everybody? Okay, good.
Oh, except for Marcy. No, we'll watch and see if she comes in.
Okay. There is an attendee, but oh yeah, it's not her. Okay. All right. Yeah, let's open the meeting. Will you please take roll, Director DeAndrea?
Yes, so Chair Green?
Present.
Vice Chair Borman?
Present.
Member Brinker?
Present.
Member Brown? Member Hubka?
Here.
Member Labe?
Here.
Member Kawanabe?
Here.
And that's it. You have a quorum, Mayor. Chair.
Thank you, Director DeAndrea. All right, so we've got, is there a motion for approving our minutes from the April 26th meeting?
Sure, I'll make a motion to accept the minutes. This is Brenda.
I'll second them. This is Kanji.
Okay, thank you. Did anyone have any corrections? I didn't see anything. Okay, let's go ahead and vote then. Director DeAndrea?
Chair Green?
Yes.
Vice Chair Borman?
Yes.
Member Brinker?
Yes.
Member Brown? Member Hubka?
Yes.
Member Labe?
Yes.
And Member Kawanabe?
Yes.
That motion carries.
Thank you. We will have recognition of public comment. I'm not sure if that phone number is Member Brown or not. There's a phone number listed as an attendee now. And
Member Brown, is that you?
Chair Green?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, I cannot get into the Zoom meeting. For some reason, it's not letting me in.
I see your phone number listed as an attendee, but it's not letting me switch you to a panelist. But you're on and you hear us?
I do, I hear you.
Okay, so please update our role to include that she's here, Director DeAndrea.
Yep. Okay.
And then we have one member of the public with a hand raised. So we will address them. Mr. Marshall, please let us know what you'd like to say.
Oh, hi. Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Well, I was just, hopefully I'm in the right meeting. I just did it off the website. This is the waste and recycling meeting, not a city council meeting, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so just so that you're clear, we're a group of citizens that city council appointed to a temporary committee to participate in helping evaluate whether the city should consider switching to a single hauler. And then there was an RFP. We reviewed the responses to it. We recommended to city council to start over and let us create a new RFP in working with city staff. And that's where we're at today. In our packet, if you access that through the city portal, you could see the current state of the RFP that we've been working on, request for proposal. And we're going to be going over that today. So that's where we're at. And then ultimately what we'll be doing is finalizing an RFP that'll go out to haulers. Haulers will respond to it, and then we'll participate in evaluating that and then make a recommendation to city council.
Well, thanks for your service in doing all that. I know that working after hours and being involved in the city is sometimes not fun, and sometimes you get shot with a lot of arrows without being able to do anything back. I just had a couple of questions, and I'm not sure what the structure when you take just citizen comments.
The structure is primarily that you just give us your input, and then we may or may not respond.
Oh, okay. Well, I've been a citizen of Inglewood for several years. I own 8 pieces of property in Inglewood, and I was just interested in hearing what the purpose of. I use 2 different companies, Waste Connections and Waste Management. So I'm pretty familiar with how they operate and their costs and all that. And I was wondering what the purpose of the city stepping in to become the kind of contractor and then having all the citizens use one company. What's the purpose of that?
Well, it's a mix of reasons from, so that, the city, I think, ultimately started with wanting to reduce traffic on the alleys, environmental benefits of fewer trucks, because currently with so many different providers, we've got running up and down any one street or alley where alley service is even still available, multiple trucks, so it's an environmental thing that kind of partly spurred it, but then the city had a series of public meetings where hundreds of people showed up and gave their input. Director DeAndrea conducted those and took the input, and then that led to the city creating this committee. But the goals have been environmental benefits, and then as well as improved citizen service levels and improved citizen reduction in cost with the benefit of bulk negotiation. So we don't know, it may or may not work out, but this is all about exploring the possibility and trying to get a proposal that would satisfy improving service levels, reducing cost, and improving environmental outcomes.
Oh, well, if you improve services and lower costs to everybody, I think that's a great purpose and kind of mission for what you guys are doing. And I'm certainly not an expert on any of this, other than I unfortunately use these guys all the time. So I think when you guys switched to forcing the trash companies to go into different parts of the city on specific days, that certainly helped a lot. That was a good move back then. The other question I think that probably everybody has, but people talk about this but aren't paying too much attention to it, is the people that own larger pieces of property, obviously have tree branches, leaves, and additional trash that they put out there, and they have, because of competition, the trash companies pick it up and don't charge you extra. Are you guys going to continue that, where everybody has to mow their lawn unless they are in a condo or townhome, I guess? And how does that work?
Well, that's actually been a contentious point among our committee here. Currently, the state of, the RF, this is one of we know that all 3 providers that currently provide service in Inglewood currently, for their legacy customers, pick up bags and bundles of branches when left out next to the trash anytime they are as part of the service. They have been pushing away from that and trying to leave that out of new customer service, even though Waste Services, which is a front for Waste Management, is still selling that service, 5 bags and 4 bundles of branches per pickup for $16 a month. But Waste Management, Republic, they've been trying to move away from this. Of course, you know, they would love it to be completely automated and, you know, drive their profits. But where we stand with the RFP right now, after a change in our last meeting, is you can see it if you pull up the RFP, but it's an a la carte type thing. We're going to get a price for including the way it currently is for everybody, with up to 5 bags and 4 bundles of branches included in the base price, or only 10 tags for a total of 10 a year per resident of bags and bundles, which I think is completely insufficient personally, but that is where we stand based on what was voted on in our last meeting. So that's where we're at with that.
All right. Well,
Hey, I'm going to speak up here. This is Brenda. The this portion of the meeting is where we take in citizen comments,
and we're able to respond
really
if we
a
want.
question and answer. It's not really a question and answer form, but
I'm allowing it.
so you know, all these things. The RFP goes out, and then the city council will even look to see what these prices are, and we can get, and you'll have a lot of your answers then. And I think also we can direct citizens to the information that we've put out as to what our mission is. And of course the RFP is on there, but I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but this isn't really a forum for question and answer to go over everything we just did over the last 10 months, if you don't mind me saying so.
yeah, I don't need to take up any more of your time, other than I did try and get on to the RFP, and it says you have to have a password to get into the iCompass City of Inglewood to get the RFP. So just
right.
so you're aware of that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I couldn't see that stuff either.
That shouldn't be that way. It should be that if you go through the city portal, you can go to the meeting for today and access the PDF of the meeting agenda, and that includes the entire thing. It's not working.
I'm in the portal, and I can't get in it either. I can't get any of the attachments or anything. So I do think, Maria, you're going to have to look at that, because Colleen's email you sent it as an attachment, and we were able to read it earlier in the week, but all the links on the city website are locked in the portal document center.
Okay, I'm sorry. We'll look at that.
Thank you.
I just clicked it and it worked for me, but that may be because I'm already in iCompass. So we'll correct that.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Marshall. I wasn't aware of that, or I would have brought that up as well. There's also, just so you know, the city has, you can submit your email and request that you get emails about meetings. And interesting, I just went through the portal, and I certainly don't have an iCompass login, and it did load for me. So I'm not sure why it's not working for Member Hubka or Mr. Marshall. When I go into the city portal and go to today's meeting and I click agenda packet, it loads it for me. So
see, without clicking the agenda, maybe you can get to it in the packet, but on the face page, when you scroll down into the agenda, those are the links that are in the invite don't work. So maybe you have to click into the agenda one more time.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah, I think that might work.
Works.
Yeah, so if you click that agenda packet, that one PDF includes the entire current state of the RFP.
Wow, you guys have done a lot of work. Good job.
Did you have any other comments for us? Okay, thank you very much for participating.
I did send you guys an email on March 1st, and nobody ever responded to it. I probably put the wrong email addresses, knowing me, but thanks a lot for all your effort in doing this. And if you get the citizens lower prices and better service, good job.
Chair,
and I'll try and listen in on some of these. I'm not going to take anybody's time, but thanks for your service.
Member Brown, your hand is up. Did you want to ask Mr. Marshall?
Could I
something?
ask Mr. Marshall
Yeah, go ahead.
a couple more questions?
Yeah, please do.
Mr. Marshall, are you still on the line?
Hello, yes.
I just wanted to ask you just two questions. The first question is, are you happy with your trash service and your price? And also, can you put as many bags as you want next to your garbage bin, and they will pick up those bags for free no matter how many you have out there?
Well, yeah, I mentioned earlier, I use Waste Connections and I also use Waste Management because I have multiple properties, and both of those two companies pick up, your grass and your leaves and your branches, as long as your branches aren't 10 feet long or anything, if you cut them up. Both of them seem to be, doing a good job. They've never asked me for additional fees for doing that. I do tip the guys at the end of the year at both companies for a Christmas present or whatever. But yeah, both of those two companies seem to do a good job for, trash collectors.
Okay. And do you think 10 bags a year is unreasonable?
Bags and
I don't
bundles.
really know what that means.
So that's part of
what?
That's part of what the current RFP says, is we're asking for what the current for the haulers to, in their proposals, say a price for the current service level of 5 additional bags, 4 additional bundles per week, or only 10 bags and bundles per customer, per property, per year.
No, I think even if you had a townhome, my properties are single family houses and townhomes. And I would say the average for grass is probably like 2 to 4 bags per week or every 2 weeks. And then when it's fall, probably double or triple that. So it's probably maybe should be closer to, I hate to say it, but like 40, not 10. And I don't know how big the bags are either. So I don't really know what you guys negotiated or talked about yet. I'm thinking of the little black bags that you buy at Home Depot and put your leaves in.
Well, yeah, we're also talking, not going to be including units of clustered townhomes in this bid. So this is single residence only. The reason is, there's a lot of reasons. We went over that with some of the vendors, but like if you, Mr. Marshall, if you have a multi-tenant building, you'll probably keep that same contract with that carrier.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. Well, it sounds like you guys have gotten a lot of information and you're heading a big project. It would be, I think a lot of people would want to make sure that their leaves and grass and all that are picked up. And if the prices are lower to everybody, that would be great. And if the service stays the same or better, that's kind of the job of the government. I personally don't like the government being involved in running a business. I think competition makes these guys work harder to get our business. But, I'll keep watching and see how it goes. And hopefully you guys get a lower price for everybody. That's the key.
Member Brinker, did you want to ask him something?
A clarifying comment that we heard that at least one of the major providers, Republic, does charge for every extra bag or bundle outside of the trash can. That's for grandfathered customers as well. A number of my neighbors have them, and they say, yeah, every time they have a bag out, they have to pay an extra $3.50 for what it's worth. And also thought it was worth mentioning that some of the options that we were considering for yard waste specifically, yard waste and compost, where that's an extra service for people that have a whole lot of yard waste could participate in without necessarily dumping those costs onto other homeowners that don't have a lot of yard waste. So I think that that's an option that is always worth pointing out.
Thank you.
Yeah, or the other option would be make sure you negotiate really, really big bags. That's a joke, by the way.
All right, thank you.
All right, I'll go on.
Thank you,
I'll go
Mr.
on
Marshall.
Yeah, thanks for letting me talk. I'll go on mute and just
Yeah, we
listen.
appreciate your input. All right, and then we had, so I don't think there's anybody else. Yeah, there's no other public attendees. So we also had the emails from C.A. Dickerson, which I'm not going to read them. Everyone, has access to those and can see them. She's pointing out that, questions about the effectiveness of recycling. I would just say for Citizen Dickerson, if you have like some proof of any of that, please present it to us. But at this point, we did ask these questions of the haulers, and the haulers have assured us that at this point, recycling is being effectively used and distributed. Does anyone else want to say anything about that? Because I know some of you might have more information about that than me. Like, Member Brinker, you're probably more up on recycling streams.
Yeah, what I remember the haulers saying is that almost 100% of the aluminum cans and tin cans get recycled locally, turned into new beer cans, and that almost all the paper does as well, almost all the glass does. And then the place where it gets more questionable is in the plastic, where they take some plastics, they don't take other plastics. They used to take more plastics than they do now because of China changing their policies. So a lot of times when we're hearing recycling doesn't work, it's more specifically aimed at the plastics question, but they still do take and process and sell the aluminum and paper and glass.
Right. And they also talked about how a lot of it's even being recycled into products within our state, which was news to me and seems pretty positive. Anybody else, anything to ask or say about the written public comment? Okay, we'll close the public hearing, the public input part of our meeting. And old business. Director D'Andrea, was there anything that you wanted to address out of the previous motions?
Nope.
Okay,
Just,
anybody?
leave it to you to how you want to structure this discussion.
Yeah, well, I think we do want to walk through the RFP, but that would be after. I mean, they're kind of mixed together, right? Like we'll end up touching all of them. So why don't we just, unless anybody has anything they want to talk about on the previous motions. Don't see any hands. Okay, so let's move into new business. And I would like you to walk us through the draft, Director D'Andrea. And I know I have notes for throughout it to discuss, and I'm sure other people do too.
Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And yeah, so I'll walk through, and I guess just stop me if you have questions or want to make comments or changes. So the version that you see on here is identical to the one that was sent to you via email. I've just added draft and then this red text that says draft for review only. So that's the only difference from the version that you received a week ago Friday. Let's go down here, we'll scan. So feel free to point out any like typos or things, like these page numbers. We'll come back and correct that at the end to make sure that all matches. or is accurate. But feel free to point anything out. All right.
Can I ask a question real quick?
I'm sorry, Member Brinker, go ahead.
I emailed, maybe half an hour ago, some, really a lot of them were really minor things like typo type stuff.
Great.
I don't need to say those here, right? I'll just assume you got those over email.
Yeah. Thank you for sending that.
Okay. And I flagged a couple things I would like to talk about as we go through, but I'll wait till we get to those sections. Thanks.
Okay. Great. So this first section called the solicitation is just talks about, you know, what we're asking for basically, and talks about how the contractor shall provide all the personnel, equipment, supplies, facilities, transportation, et cetera, so that they can come back and say, oh, well, you didn't, you know, say this specifically. So it really is meant to encompass all of the elements of establishing and delivering the services for the program, which is defined as residential solid waste and recycling collection and disposal. And then we get into some subsets of that. So we do advertise the request for proposal on what we call BidNet, which is a site that's available to local entities and allows people, companies to download that RFP so that there's no paper transactions. Member Brinker?
Sorry, I forgot to lower my hand.
Oh, okay. And Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, the first paragraph in the solicitation section didn't include customer service. I know it's inferred, but just a thought to add that.
Yep. I'm going to, oops. I'm just gonna, going to add comments as we go along here, and then I'll come back and clean it up. All right. So as it says there, response to this RFP should serve as a complete and detailed approach. So we really want them to put some effort into the proposal so that the program is comprehensive and hits on all the points that we identify. Separate proposals for any single portion will not be considered unless specifically stated. So we don't want somebody bidding on just the recycling. You know, we want them to deliver at the minimum that base level of service. I do call out, you know, the composting is separate and they can either bid on that or not. But that was really, I think, the only element of that.
And
so
have you sorry, Director DeAndre, have you started on this separate compost RFP, or once we get this, then you'll make a version like that? Or
yeah, I have not started on it yet.
Okay, just wondered.
Yeah, we'll go through it a little bit in the timeline here, but it does allow for, this is a multi-year service term subject to annual appropriation, meaning that the city, this is our standard language, is because of Tabor and other state statutes, we cannot enter into multi-year contracts, but instead it's assumed to be a multi-year, but it's subject to annual appropriation, meaning that each year during the budget cycle, the city council might consider not allowing funds to move forward. So that is a risk, relatively small, but that is typical for municipal agencies in Colorado who commence onto a multi-year kind of contract like this. So we can enter into these types of agreements, but they are subject to that annual appropriation. And then we talk about that either party may terminate the contract upon providing a 180-day written notice, so roughly 6 months.
Why do you have that? So they like, we could be 5 years into it and they could just decide they want to make more money and cancel it. I mean,
yeah. For whatever reason, we don't give any reasons really, just that, I guess, again, it's a typical term. Typically that can be usually 60 or 90 days. So I did double it.
Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, that was a cause for concern for me as well, just because how long it took this committee just to get through an RFP was much longer than 6 months. If it's standard language, it is what it is, right? It's just
I mean, is it required?
Warning.
It's not required. So, you know, we can delete that. I think, where's my delete button? We can, I can follow up with the city attorney if we have to allow something like that for them to terminate the contract. But it might be, for cause, meaning that you spell out what the reasons are that they would be allowed to terminate.
I mean, that would make sense.
As opposed to this language says that there doesn't have to be a reason.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with Member Quanabay on that too. Like, so much effort has gone into this, and the whole point of getting a 10-year deal would be to, if the city agreed to do it, that there'd be benefit to the citizens of, service levels and costs. And if they could, if the other side has an out without cause at any point, then that really takes, I don't know, to me, that seems like a bad deal for citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I can, sorry, I should raise my hand. I know.
Yeah, but go ahead, Member Hubka.
But yeah, because if we were to cancel in the agreement, say the city decided, we would have to prove cause. Otherwise, we'd be on the hook for the whole 10 years.
Well, but this sentence makes it so either side could cancel without cause.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to want their 10 years, of total contract value. I can see, but yeah, I don't think they would agree. A trash carrier would agree that we could just cancel without cause and without owing them the whole 10 years. You're not going to get anybody to respond to something like that.
Well, and it takes the whole value. Sorry.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's just, I don't think any trash carrier would agree to letting the city just cancel 3 years into a 10-year contract. So they probably wouldn't answer this RFP.
This what language was in the RFP last time too, just FYI. So
yeah,
but it doesn't make it a good deal.
Yeah, and it was only 5 years, and we got terrible prices, and we only had 2 competitors go into it. So we want as many competitors as possible, and we want to keep the cost down. They're going to want to make sure that they get all their cost back if we cancel in 3 years. So the whole point is them investing so that they get 10 years worth of the total contract value over 10 years. So I think I would revisit that part with our lawyers, our attorney, the city attorney.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, another aspect of that is if they think they're getting a 10-year contract and they're investing in equipment and we can cancel without cause at any point and just screw them, that's going to hurt them. So it's not good for citizens. It's not good for the haulers. Remember Brinker?
I've heard some contracts say upon mutual agreement of both parties.
Yeah, or commonly you do have a set of for cause. Like if they're not fulfilling, if they're constantly not fulfilling the service levels and people aren't, citizens aren't happy, cities not happy, and they're not doing what the contract says they're supposed to do, then we should be able to cancel it. But if they're doing what they're supposed to do and the city's, paying for it, or, citizens are paying. Yeah. All right. So any other thoughts on that before we move on?
Okay.
Thank you, Director DeAndrea.
I think Vice Chair Borman has his hand up too.
Oh, I don't see it. Oh, maybe I don't have everything showing. Go ahead, Vice Chair Borman. Sorry, I don't see you. Why do I not see you?
He got demoted to he's back up to panelist. Okay.
That was all. I had to drop because my phone wasn't working. So.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
Did you have something to say on that?
Just that I think we would probably have to outline what cause is.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
And so we're going to have to try and figure out what those sort of things would be, if it's a customer service issue, if it's, certain performance of, recycling that doesn't occur, if something, I don't know. I think we'll have to explore what the reasons for cause are as a part of our future conversation.
Well,
go ahead, Member Hubka.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, so isn't that part of the service level agreement, though, that we discussed in the customer service situation?
Yeah, I mean, the contract specifies all the things they have to do. And I mean, I think it would be a straightforward legal thing to put into the contract that if they consistently don't fulfill what they're obligated to do, and they have, say they have 30 days to fix it, but if they, over and over don't, if they multiple times or how, lawyers are going to be able to put that in.
Right, I agree.
Ability to correct it. And then, yeah, we don't need to come up with all that, but there should be a definition of, city has to notify a hauler if they're not satisfying the agreement, and then they have so long to correct. And if they don't correct, then city has right for cause to terminate, et cetera, that kind of thing.
Right.
I like that wording a lot, actually.
I mean, that's typical in even software contracts. That's what I'm used to. But I've never seen like either party can kill for no reason with no repercussions. I don't know why anyone would invest in trucks with that sentence in there. Please continue, Director DeAndrea.
Okay. So this next paragraph talks about that, we encourage options and variables to the scope, and that we want to encourage innovative ideas as well. So there is a section within the response proposal where they can mention those. And then we've also awarded some points if they were to come up with some of those innovative ideas. Going over to the next page, page 4, we may issue addenda. So typically they will write down questions and submit those. And then one of our first addenda usually is the responses to any of those questions. And that's also provided through that BidNet website. We're asking for 5 hard copies and 1 digital copy. So we would send out the digital copy to the committee. And then just the hard copies are for our permanent records in the office. So this is kind of an important point. Upon submission, all documents shall become and remain the property of the city. And so if there is, for some reason, that there's a difference between the hard copy and the electronic copy, the hard copy shall prevail. So if for some reason, it says $13 in the digital copy, and the hard copy says $14, we would go with the $14.
Why is that? I mean, clearly we're not going to have the hard copies to look at. Is everyone in the city council? I mean, people are probably going to be reviewing the electronic copy and making, notes on that. It just seems weird. It seems archaic to me, but.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do, I guess, as archaic as it may sound, the hard copy still holds the most weight because that was submitted, or would technically have been submitted, physically to the city before that due date. And there was no chance that that could be changed or modified in any way.
Okay.
They do have the option of withdrawing their offer in writing at any time prior to the deadline for submission. So let's say the deadline was Thursday. They would have up until the time on Thursday, even if they had physically given us their package of materials, to take that back and say, here's a new one. Then if it was 2 p.m. on that Thursday, at 2 p.m., if we hadn't received a new one, or if we hadn't had, whatever we've got at that time is basically what we have. So up until that time, they could be switching them out over and over again. Again, it kind of goes back to the hard copy version. So any offer received and not withdrawn shall be considered an offer. So it's really upon the respondents to say, yep, if we submit, then we are going to consider this a reasonable bid or a proposal, and we can't, even if they sent us an email afterwards or called us, it'd be like, no, we don't want to be considered, too late. You've already passed the deadline. And then we've got 120 calendar days to look at those, review those, and make a decision, just like we did last time. If you recall, we decided to terminate or reject the proposals rather than accept one in that 120 calendar days. And then we just had the right to waive informalities and minor irregularities. And that's really a discussion that if things like that should come up, that's in conjunction with the city attorney's office who's looking at that. So then this paragraph 5. So sometimes there may be information that the respondent would consider confidential. It might be their way of service delivery, something else. It can't be their prices. That's not a confidential element of the proposal, but there may be something that they wish to not have their competitors see. And so we would ask that that be written out specifically of why they believe the material is confidential. And then we would be the judge of that as to whether that is acceptable or not. And so then it comes back to what do we make available to the public? So we can, as soon as we receive those become a public document and anyone can request those to review those. So competitors, anything like that. So last time we did not have anything that was marked confidential. But that we are leaving that open because there may be that option for people to do that.
I didn't see the exclusion of them trying to specify price as confidential.
I don't know if we have to spell that out, but that would be our interpretation, is that's not necessary to specify, but I can include that in there.
I mean, yeah, I'm sure the city attorney is probably fine on that. And yeah. I'm not saying it needs to be there. You said that it was excluded. So I was just curious because I didn't see that.
It doesn't hurt to spell it out.
Sure.
Ignore my poor typing as we go through this too. All right. Substantive proposals. So again, respondent is certifying that the proposal is genuine and is basically on behalf of the firm that they're representing, and that they're not, there's an anti-collusion exhibit that they have to sign as well, but basically, like it says here, it's not a sham proposal.
Director DeAndrea, I don't want to make you have to read the whole thing or explain everything.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I really appreciate you being willing to do it that way. And I don't want to rush anything, but I also don't want to waste time. So maybe just kind of go through each section, just give everyone a chance to raise their hands if they have any input.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I think what you were doing is absolutely fine based on what I had said. So I appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
All right. So here I talk again about the anti-collusion affidavit. That's one of the attachments. Contract award of how we would go about awarding the contract. And then a notice to proceed is actually a written letter that we send to the contractor once that contract has been signed and we've received the insurance, the bonds, all the other necessary documentation to allow them to start the work. We also offer a debriefing. So if other respondents who weren't selected want to sit down and meet with the city about maybe how they could have made their offers better, we offer that.
Is that a legal requirement?
No.
Just friendly.
Yep.
Cool.
There's some language here if you're a foreign entity, if that becomes an issue. procurement rules and regulations. This gives a link to our website that has more details on that about the city's procurement policy.
Oh, I had a typo on 12.
Okay.
One of the last sentences, the entity shall also provide VA.
Oh, That right? Okay. All right. So order of precedence is pretty straightforward. So you see the highlighted sections here, the dates. So once we're ready to issue, I'll fill those in. But basically we have a mandatory pre-proposal conference. So that means they have to attend, at least one entity. For if you're planning to submit a proposal, at least one person from that entity has to sign in. We're still planning to do that virtually right now. Then we have, as I said here, a question deadline. So typically we'll set that for a couple of weeks after the pre-proposal meeting to give them some time to review it, have that mandatory pre-proposal, and then give them some time for questions. And then within usually about a week, then we have the response to when those questions are, I should highlight this, when those responses are posted on BidNet. So that answers their questions and everybody can see that. Then this is when the proposal would be due. And then just how to submit that. So again, late proposals not be accepted. They got in an accident and the way to delivering that is really not, there's no excuses. So it's up to them to make sure that they deliver that ahead of time. And that we don't accept fax or email. It has to be a hard copy proposal. And then we have a little disclaimer here. So respondents are not permitted to make any direct or indirect contact with members of the selection committee. I would include this committee in that, including the city council and staff or media. I'll say I'm gonna add staff in there too. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. This just gives some information about the city overall, just kind of a, general information. Then this talks about how we get to that 9,600 units number and gives a breakdown.
I do have a question on the about Inglewood. Why does it mention millennials? What does that have to do with anything?
I'm sorry, mention what?
The first sentence. Why does it? I mean, I don't know. I think it just seems so ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just off the website.
Remember Hubka?
Well, I'll just respond to that. I'll defend him a little bit. A city does better when young people are moving in. For a while, Englewood in the 70s became, and we lost Cinderella City because everybody moved out and went to the suburbs, and they went to South Glen and Southwest Plaza. So a city does want to attract a younger population because then we get more home ownership and we get better property values out of that. So we don't have to have it in this contract, but she did just copy paste it, I guess, I don't think it's that consequential,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it has anything to do with trying to get trash service, though.
It's just some nice wording that you put into a document. I really would make an issue out of that,
Member Brown?
Yeah, I don't, I agree with you, Chair Green. I don't think it should be in there at all. I don't understand the reasoning.
I mean, to me, it seems ageist. Like millennials are more special than other people in some way or something.
Right.
Okay. All right, program goals. This is these are what we've talked about since the beginning. These were established again even prior to the last RFP. Any comments on those or changes? Marcy, Member Brown?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't. Yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I have a problem with it saying providing overall financial savings to city residents. I don't understand how that's possible when you are adding an administrative fee to the bill. You are, or not you, I don't mean you specifically, but that the recycling has to be mandatory. And I have read through the whole RFP, but I'm still concerned about those 10 bags where if people are going to use more than 10 bags, it's going to cost them more. So I'm not understanding why we even have that in there, because it's not going to be an overall financial savings to city residents. I mean, right now, can you assure me that I'm going to pay less than $16 a month?
No, and I think that's why the word overall was used, is that some people may pay more, but the hope is that more people will pay less. But there's no guarantee that everybody will pay less.
So why would we put that in there?
I think, again, overall, the word overall is that the goal would be, as a goal, is that we are achieving financial savings to most city residents.
But with all the added, fees, I don't see how that's possible, Director DeAndrea.
Well, Member Brown, it may or may not be, but that's just a goal at this point. I mean, that is you and I and everybody else, we want it to be cheaper. We want the cost to be better, but this is not part of the terms of the agreement. So, and overall financial savings was a goal expressed by citizens in the wider meetings, and at least it's in there as a goal. And since that's a goal, let's keep it in as a goal because we want that to be a goal. Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, so a couple of comments on this one. I love that these were put in here and we agreed on this. So a couple of things. I don't think the purpose of this is to relitigate every single issue, because we've went through this over the last 10 months and litigated these specific issues. My thing with the having these 7 points, I think would be really important to focus in on these on the scoring sheets. So it kind of ties all the way back to the end, right? But at least it gives us a North Star to be able to say, hey, this is what we agreed upon 10 months ago as our goals, and how are we measuring up against that?
Good point. Vice Chair Borman?
Yeah, I agree with Member Kawanabe that we don't need to relitigate this sort of stuff. This is all definitely just a goal. Maybe we can put it in terms of a priority level or something like that. But one of my big goals was always to give most of us savings. And I think still that $16 is a waste management scam, just trying to keep us from doing this, to be quite honest. I think they've, created waste services to undermine the possibility of this committee.
Interesting. Okay. Let's keep going then, Director DeAndrea.
All right, so here's the schedule. Again, just this date will change based on the actual date of the RFP. But assuming this, there's basically work forward, giving appropriate time. So I know we had heard from at least one of the haulers that they wanted more time. So last time we had given them 5 weeks to respond. This time I'm doing, looks like 8. So wanted to throw that out there. I think it was the lady was their very first speaker, had wanted 3 months. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, that seems a little excessive. So I'm kind of going in the middle and doing, I think this is 7 or 8 weeks. That would give us a couple months to review, shortlist, then we'd hold some public meetings. Again, if this stays on that schedule, And then we'd have those discussions with council in early part of 2022, and then start the service. We'd give them basically about 6 months between when we approve the contract and the start of service. And that would be education to the community, setting up those, getting the bins in place right at the end. But it takes a lot of effort to basically, within that time period, to go live, if you will, on that October 1st date.
Vice Chair Borman, your hand is still up. Did you have something else? Oh, okay.
All right. So no questions on the schedule. Again, we'll make sure that works out once we get to the actual submittal date. So here we talk in the scope of services about solid waste and just how we want that processed. Talking about developing a 5-day schedule. Then this is that each collection truck shall be weighed before and after unloading to report that actual tonnage, and that we'll get that on a monthly basis. There's also another portion where we talk about records or how they, the reports that they need to submit. Then we have here's where we get into those disposal costs. So the tipping fees, we had talked about that. This is where I included that, is they can either have the option of including that in their fee, or that they will use, and if they don't include it, then we would use this estimated amount. So basically we can compare costs between haulers.
Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, I just wondered where we came up with that $90,000. Is it reasonable, or is it possible that it could be undershooting and we could end up screwing ourselves?
Yeah, so I had, when we initially created a list of questions for the 2 haulers, if you recall, that was one of the questions I had asked them, and they had both estimated it at 10,000 tons. And then just asking, like, how much do you think our community would generate? And so then I used that times the tipping fee that at the Oxford station, just to get in that rough ballpark.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's the best I can do.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering if we could put in some wording, maybe that would be like, if you don't include it, we will do $90,000, or the average of the other haulers' tipping fees, whichever is greater, or something like that.
Okay.
But if the other haulers do a proposal with the tipping fees included, they may not even break it out, right? Is there a requirement that they break out the tipping fee that they're including?
Yeah, I put it as a separate line in the cost proposal.
Okay. So then we could do what Vice Chair Borman said. I like that. I think it makes sense to make it not a hard and fast number.
Yeah.
So that when evaluating, the city has the flexibility to, interpret that, right?
Yeah, I struggled with this because we were giving them the option. So yeah, how do we make it apples to apples?
I mean, if they leave it out, then it should be a benefit, the city should be able to interpret it whatever way benefits citizens. Did you have more, Vice Chair Borman?
No, that's pretty much it. I think that, something of the word, and so we don't end up, being on, kind of picking a company and then them being like, haha, never mind. Actually, it's going to be $150,000.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Right. Where they use that to benefit themselves because it's a fixed number.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we talk about both alley and street side still pickup within the same block. Collection of garbage outside of the container. So this is that idea of we'd either have limited or unlimited pickup outside of the container, and the cost proposal includes both of those options. So the base service assumes that all garbage will be disposed of within the provided container. Then we have on top of that, it would be limited pickup, which is that 10 tags, and then unlimited pickup would be unlimited.
All right, we got hands up. Vice Chair Borman.
Yeah, was just thinking about this because we didn't really address this. If we do end up with going with 10 tags, I think we need to define how much buying more tags would cost. And maybe I misheard while I was in the car, but I felt like somebody said that they knew how much additional tags were costing from Republic.
Yeah, what'd you say, Member Brinker? Was it 3 something?
Yeah, I heard for Republic it was $350, but we also got a bid for that from Waste Management in our original RFP. We asked them both, what will it cost for additional bags that aren't included here? And I think that's probably what we should do here too. What would you charge for additional bags that aren't included here in either option?
Yeah, we should at least fix that if we're doing this. I mean, I also think we should really reconsider the number, because 10 that's not enough to do leaves for one property in the fall, much less, grass clippings throughout the year. And especially if we're negotiating as a city, then we should be getting a better deal. And, again, Waste Management and Waste Connections are doing it for most customers without extra fees. Vice Chair Borman?
Yeah, I just think we should try and define more along the lines of because what if we do the 10 bags? Because, we're talking about the possibility of some people having, minimal property and almost no trees. Hell, I lost all my trees in the first year I was here. And so we've got, ones that are 7 feet tall. I don't have normally any, but I sort of was thinking along the lines of we say, how much would it be to buy 10 additional bag tags, so that would be a bulk pricing. And I also think we should be able to include that those tags can be rolled over from year to year as well.
And not
so that they don't expire
at
the end of the year.
Sure. Member Kawanabe?
Yeah, this is just more of a verbiage thing for me. This reads as both to me versus either or. I don't know if that was, or if I'm just reading that funny.
What do you mean exactly?
Yeah, let me explain that a little bit better. So when requesting this information, it reads to me that the service would be both limited pickup outside and unlimited, but there's no either or verbiage in here. Thank you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Member Brown?
Good. This is great.
Okay. I was just, when I read this, it says, if selected by the city, in addition to that base service, exactly who are we talking about when we say city? Are we talking about city council? Are we talking about the committee? I mean, who is going to, I guess my question is, who is going to say which one we can have?
Well, City Council makes the decision. We make a recommendation to City Council, but City Council is going to be deciding whether to move forward with this or not, and which response to the proposal to accept or not.
So they can either choose one or the other, is that correct?
That's how the RFP is laid out right now, is we're saying that the haulers have to provide an option for both of those. And clearly the unlimited will be more expensive, and since we know the haulers want to push that out, they'll probably price that high to make it so it's, untenable. Member Brinker?
I think that those tags can be rolled over like was suggested. I also think they could be traded or given to your neighbors. So they wouldn't be tied to a specific year or address. And then for properties that do have a whole ton of waste, whether that's yard waste or otherwise, we do already have the option where they can get another bin, another 96-gallon bin. And therefore the properties that do have a lot of extra trash would pay for that extra trash, and the properties that have almost no trash wouldn't have to subsidize those others. And personally, I like that better. We purposely got a small house. We traded out all our grass for low water flowers and ground cover. It looks gorgeous. And I don't have 40 bags a year of yard waste. I think we have tons of options for those households that do without the rest of us having to subsidize them.
Yeah, let's encourage everyone to cut down all the trees in Inglewood, so they don't have any trees and no branches and no yard waste.
That's a little bit unappreciated.
That's what it sounds like to me. Member Brown?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about myself and my neighbors. I have a huge yard. And as I said the last meeting, I have a huge tree. And when Mr. Marshall spoke, I mean, he was saying the same thing. He has trees. So, I mean, just to mow my lawn is 5 big black bags. And I can punch them, I can push them in, and all of this. So I use 5 bags a week. So in other words, here we go again with more money that now I'm going to have to get a 96 gallon, which I can't push, to put my lawn clippings in, or my branches, or my gardening. You know, I do a lot of gardening. I have a lot of gardens, which also helps the environment, by the way. So because I like to keep my lawn clipped and my trees, you know, in a good order, I have to pay more for that. I see, this is what I don't understand, why we cannot go with the 5 bags.
Right, what we originally voted on. But
right.
you and I got outvoted. I'm with you. We're at where we're at. Everyone else wants it this way, so we're kind of stuck. Vice Chair Borman.
One thing I was thinking too is if we do go with the unlimited one, I think we should specify that the person, just in case we do the pay as you throw, you have to elect to get the 96 gallon bin. Because that way, again, we kind of talked about this at the beginning, where it was like if they got the 32 gallon trash bin and then they could put 5 bags or 4 bundles or whatever next to it. I just think we need to specify that would have to go along with the 96 gallon trash service.
That makes sense. I wish we'd just go back to what we originally voted on and make it that way as part of the base. But what you're saying makes sense. If we do pay as you throw, it doesn't make sense to have someone pick the small container and have bags on the side. If we have single size container, then these make sense. I mean, although 10 isn't enough, not remotely. Do you have something to say, Member Hubka?
No, I'm just exasperated. I just want to get through this. I didn't raise my hand. Okay. Let's see what prices we get. You know, I think we're still so hung up on what's going to happen, but I think that this document, what we've put together, is excellent as far as just collecting as many options as possible to get the best price.
Yeah, but we're not going to get a price that makes it work for unlimited or just the 5 bags and 4 bundles like they all currently provide, when we're giving them an option to not do that. They're not going to make that competitive. I mean, that's guaranteed. I would gamble on that.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I totally understand. I just don't think we're going to make all the people happy all the time. And
right,
we may
lowering the service.
Yeah.
Member Brinker?
I wondered if we could move on and discuss the large item pickup.
Well, it's not quite the next thing, but we'll get there.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we've beat this up. Let's keep moving. Director DeAndrea.
All right, so we did talk about, I added in roll-off services to get a price for that if a property owner would want to consider that. So there will be a set price for that.
Oh, did you give us attachments F and G? I didn't see them.
Let me just see what F and G were.
Public info was F and education, and then reporting requirements is G. I didn't see either of them. But maybe I just missed it.
No,
oh, okay. No, I did read through that. Okay, thank you. I was looking for it as a separate doc.
Oh, okay. Okay, and then you can buy or rent an additional 96 gallon if you want. Program opt-out. So this is a question I'd like to discuss further. So we had talked about that so if you recall, the two proposals, at least one of them required that whether the person was opted in or not, they still had to pay that minimum service rate, which was whatever that base level of service was. So even if they weren't getting the service, well, at least the city had to pay the contractor for those costs. So what I'm saying here is that, what we talked about is that for that's an incomplete sentence. So for the first year of the program, that all households have to opt in, if you recall. And then, so they would essentially pay that minimum service rate to the contractor in that first year. But then after that, we wouldn't want contractors to still pay that minimum, to have the assumption that all households pay the minimum service rate. How do you all feel about that?
I was confused as to why you would specify an assumed opt-out rate.
I think we have to give them something to shoot from or for.
But that's just a complete guess?
Yeah, that was, I think we had talked to the city of Golden. They started at, I think, 3, and we're at about 1.5 now, currently.
Member Hubka?
I'm just trying to understand what the question is. Are we only asking citizens to pay the opt-out rate for 1 year out of a 5, 7, or 10-year contract?
No,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I think what I'm asking is, so if we got a proposal like one of the two before that said, I don't care about your opt-out program, we're still, if you have 9,600 households, we're going to charge you 9,600 times whatever that our rate is. Are you guys comfortable with that, or do you want to eliminate those types of proposals from consideration?
No, we voted on that. That should stay the way it is.
Yeah, I'm still confused, but.
So, Member Hubka, the way we voted to have it is everyone is required to participate for the first year. And then after the first year, citizens have the right to opt out. Whether the citizens, I think what you're thinking of is separately, there was discussion about whether citizens would still have to pay the city admin fee of $2 or $3 or whatever that is. That's separate from this because that doesn't affect the contract with the hauler.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This is just the contractor will be responsible for adjusting its service schedule. Okay.
It's letting the contractor know that citizens have the right to opt out after the first year, and they're not going to get paid for that citizen, and they're responsible for skipping that citizen's house.
Yep.
Okay. Copy that. Sorry.
No problem. Director DeAndrea, I had one other thing on the previous page. At the top, collection locations, I know it's part of it, but I think it should be a little bit more spelled because it's later in the contract it says it, but I think in here it should also specify it's both garbage and recycling, alleyway and street side.
Okay. Yeah, I have that here down here too. Once we get to recycling, I do have street side and alleyway.
Yeah, I know it's there, but I just thought because you've got this paragraph that kind of sets up the overall, it should specify it there too.
Okay. Member Brown?
Thank you.
I just want to put this on the record. I know it's not going to change anything, but I am really disappointed that we have this, that we are making people opt in for a year, because citizens aren't going to have a vote in this apparently. And so I am totally against this, but that's just my opinion, and I want it on there for the record. Thank you.
Thanks, Member Brown.
Okay.
And you're fixing that dangling sentence?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, right. I'll do something there.
Thanks.
This is very helpful to have all of these eyes on this. So.
Yeah, I bet.
So we talk about, again, so now we're getting into recycling. That was the garbage portion. This is recycling, where we're gonna pick up, that they must be, so shall or must be transported to a licensed material recovery facility. And then again, the weighing before and after, so we can get actual tonnage, and that we'll be submitting those records to the city on a monthly basis. Recycling containers of varying sizes, actually took that out. Collection locations, public assistance. So any questions about the recycling element?
I have a question.
Size thing. Go ahead, Vice Chair Borman.
Sure, yeah. I'm reading under the recycling containers part. It says the contractor supply each residence with one recycling container unless they opt out of the recycling program.
Mm-hmm.
We should specify that doesn't disqualify them for paying the fee for the recycling program.
Yeah.
Since it is mandatory. I don't know if that's somewhere else mentioned, but
no,
just to make sure, because just because somebody doesn't want the recycling, we don't want to have them thinking that they get a different price.
Yeah.
I think that's in the pricing structure effectively, but I think your point makes sense that it, for someone as a caller reading this, that may not be super clear. And yeah, I was wondering why we had 64 in there.
Yeah.
Or was it for recycling where we're doing 32 and 96? Is that what we?
I took it as we're doing it for both garbage and recycling. We're just the two sizes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. All right. So large item bulk waste. So we talked about as the base service, and again, this highlighted portion, I'd like to talk about that, is that they would perform 2 annual pickups to each household, and that they would have to do that at curbside or in the alley. So just proposing, as our 2 previous ones did, to do it in a park or a nearby facility where people had to haul them to somewhere else is not acceptable. Is that okay to write it that way? Or are we open to doing something else like a tag, or, like we get two vouchers a year per household? Just wanted
Vice Chair Borman.
This was actually one of my thoughts too, is I think, because the problem with like programmatic, I think usually makes me think that we'll say, hey, yeah, we're going to have a large item pickup in March and in November. And I think what we really need to have is tags so that you have 2 items or 2 large items to be picked up per household. And again, it should be something that should be able to be exchanged between households. So it's not tied to the specific residence, but also that they roll over year to year, because you might have a year where nobody dumps something in your alley, and then you might get 5 in a year. And then that way you're not responsible for it.
This one's really confusing to me because this is not a service level that anybody currently has. All of the haulers pushed against it hard. None of them want to do it. None of them have the ability right now to do it, and it would be extremely expensive for them to add it. To me, like the drop off for yard waste or for large item pickup is ridiculous. The whole point of it is, you can't put that, you're not going to put that in your car. You can't fit it, or you don't want it in your car. So I agree with you on rejecting, and we've already gone through that as a group. We've rejected the drop-off possibility for large item and for yard waste, but making this super expensive thing that nobody currently has a requirement, while we're taking away the service level everyone's currently used to in regard to yard waste, makes no sense to me. Like, and I don't know where go ahead, Member Brinker. I know you wanted to talk about this.
If we do have tags, that would maybe address my concern, but I was thinking that when we discussed it before, it would be an option that we would consider once we got the pricing in. It'd be part of our menu of options, and we'd see what the cost is compared to the benefits. And this was one thing I noticed, how it's written. It seems like we're absolutely definitely going to do this for sure. So I would rearrange it. Instead of having it in the base cost, we would ask them, what is your cost to do 2 times a year? And still, as it is now, what is your cost if someone just calls randomly with their dishwasher?
Yeah, I agree that the way it's written is it's required in the base price that they do this, which, that's going to drive the cost up way more than the standard yard waste that they currently provide, that we're giving them an opt out of, which makes no sense. Member Hubka?
It sounds to me like we're just asking them, and they have to, because remember in the last bid, we didn't get, I think, a cost. They just didn't even answer the bid. If you remember, the problem we're trying to solve is people from out of the city dropping off large items in our city for us to deal with, which, if you remember from I was talking to Officer Lewis of Code Enforcement, is somewhat of a problem. They dropped, it's too bad Steve Ward isn't here, because he had to deal with his neighbors. His neighbors moved out and they just threw their couch and stuff on his property. I offered to give him my van. But no, the point is that the proposal says it has to include a cost for large item bulk pickup or at alley or curbside, but you can't gloss over it and not just provide it. That's the way I read this part of the contract. Am I right, Maria?
It says as part of the base service.
Yeah, I think this was part of the intent to have this in the base service, was because of exactly what you talked about, Member Hubka, is that people have large items and how do they dispose of them? And so while that might not be a service currently offered through their garbage, it was a key concern, because either it falls to the city staff to pick that up, and ultimately those costs go back to all homeowners, or homeowners are left on their own to deal with either their own items or their or people, like you said, who just happen to drop them at their property. So I think my question is, do we want to insist? I think we want to have some sort of large item bulk waste pickup. The question is, does it absolutely need to be at the property? Or is there another way? If it is at the property, does it have to? I think what they weren't super good about, or excited about doing it all at one day or one weekend, that would take a lot of effort. I know that for a fact they do this in Commerce City. So you can put items, I believe it's up to 3 or 4 out at the curb, and on a particular weekend, they'll come through and do 1/3 or 1/4 of the city on a particular weekend. So it is possible. But I think then I put that alley or curbside to avoid that. Well, now I have to figure out how to haul it to the park, 3 blocks away.
Member Brinker.
I agree. I don't want to see that.
It sounds like no one wants to haul it across the city, and you can't always fit it in your car anyway. So that seems like mostly an agreement on that. But I don't know if it has to be in the base service or it's more of a formatting thing that here and in the charts further down below where they fill it out. It's additional menu item where once we get the pricing, we can look at, is that worth the cost to residents or is it too expensive? So I think it's just more of a formatting thing for now.
Member Brown?
I was just thinking that if this drives up the price, as you said, Chair Green, then why can't we have something like, I don't know, like, when you have, like, say, a mattress that's been thrown in the back of your property, that the consumer pays for them to pick it up. I mean, can't we do it on an individual base like that instead of making it part of what we're paying?
Yeah, especially considering it's not something that anyone currently has. This is a new service that none of the providers currently provide. And I think it's more than formatting. We have it in here as a required base thing, and the structure of it being, 2 annual. So is the way that is written, is your interpretation of that, Director DeAndrea, that each citizen gets 2 single large item pickups at their discretion? Is that what that means?
No, I had written it such that it would be 2 events per year where you could put out up to X number of things at your curb or in the alley.
So is it a limit, like, on the number of things?
Yeah, and I thought I had that in here, but that should be added. But I would say 3 or 4. And we define that in the cost proposal.
Because it even says bathtub,
yeah,
which is kind of weird because it's like you're limited to 40 pounds of carpet, but a bathtub could weigh hundreds. I would suggest that this be more towards what Member Brown said. Like, I mean, and I would ask the rest of the committee to consider that not everybody does have a zero-scaped property, and hundreds, if not thousands, of residents in this city currently are used to being able to have their yard waste picked up when they mow their lawn. To move us to standard level of yard waste and make this, that's a more complex, more expensive thing that is currently not provided, be something that they have to provide, but that the way they provide it is a paid thing, that citizens have the right to request a large item pickup, and they will pick it up within, a period of time, and it costs X, and they have to pay for it, because that's going to drive the cost up way more than the standard service of yard waste. Member Hubka?
Well, now we're talking about 2 different things. We're talking about yard waste, and we're talking about large item pickup, right?
Right. So well, right now we have large item pickup as required included.
It's required that they offer to pick it up twice a year as requested.
Included in the base price.
Yeah. Why don't we just see what the price is like? We can always say, hey, we can go through this for another year. We could.
Because the reason
we just did that, we did put out an RFP. We're doing this again. If we get RFPs that are just beyond what we even pay now, then we're probably just going to toss this whole thing. But if we get some prices in here, it'll at least give us an area to go. And we can say, you know what? Let's do an RFP again. And let's take out this and do that. I'd say let's rather than relitigate this again, let's see what we get, mostly as written here. And then if it's really going to cause a lot of tears and bloodshed because the prices are terrible, then we have at least a better idea and some data, some prices with which to pick and choose. Maybe we can, I think at the end of the day, you might even say, oh, we'll forget Allie. It could be anything. What we're doing is we're throwing a whole bunch of, we're just throwing stuff at a dartboard here, and I think that's a good idea. Let's see how much this stuff all costs. Let's go for the big kahuna. And then once we get prices, we really could put out an RFP yet again.
Well, if we're going for the big kahuna, then we should make the current level of yard waste service be base price. Remember Brinker?
Well, they said, remember, you can't just make it unlimited trash.
It's not. It's 5 bags and 4 bundles, which is what they all currently provide, except Republic has pushed away from it and started charging. Waste Management and Waste Connections doesn't. Waste Connections in their meeting with us told us they could totally accommodate that. Remember Brinker?
Oh, right. But let's just find out.
Well, they're not going to they're not going to give us a price for whether it's going to make that attractive when we're also letting them do this 10 bag thing. Remember Brinker?
Yeah.
Thanks, Chair Green. I want to see if we might be able to stay on topic for the large item pickup. And I don't know, I want to say really respectfully if we could move on from the yard waste. I feel like it's been mentioned 50 times today. And maybe if you want to try to undo the motion and resubmit a motion, then do. But otherwise, I don't want to spend 2 hours just relitigating that.
Well, we relitigated it last time we met. We had already made a decision on it. That's why it's so frustrating.
So make a motion. I mean, re-vote on it again if you want, but we could put that on the agenda. We could talk through it, but I think that it's bleeding into every single aspect of this RFP, and our goal was to try to make it through the RFP. And right here, we're talking about large item pickup,
which is going to drive the cost up way more.
So can we discuss large item pickup then? And on that topic, we don't know if it'll drive the cost until we get the prices. So that's why I was hoping it would be one of a menu of options rather than in the base costs. And it sounds like almost everyone is okay with at least that minor step.
I'm not. I want to keep it as base price unless we negotiate to get yard waste part of the base price.
Well, then make a motion.
No, it's already in there this way.
Okay.
It's not. We actually had that the large item pickup would be in our menus of options. As I read through the motions, the past ones, it didn't look like we had voted for it to be a base service. It was an option where we would get the pricing and we would look at the pricing once we get it. But having said that, if you do want to take it out and make a motion for any household that has a large item, they pay for that large item. I'm okay with that, and it might be worth some discussion on just that particular issue.
Vice Chair Borman?
I'd be totally okay with us just making this an optional sort of thing. I thought that's kind of what we had where we kind of, like we were talking about it as one of the a la carte options where we have the ability to say, we have our base price of just our trash, our recycling, and then the large item was like, we'll determine whether that is a value added to our community. That's the way I understood it, but I guess, I don't remember the exact motion that was said either. So
Member Brinker's right. And I agree that, I looked at the motions too. We did make it a la carte. That's what it's supposed to be. I'm just super frustrated because of, this is an example of something that pushes the cost up tremendously. None of them have the ability to do it. All of them said they don't want to do it and they don't do it, whereas they all do the other thing. And we're setting up the RFP so that we're not going to get a good price for the current level of service. I'll stop on it. I know you guys hear that. I think you're going to have a massive pushback once citizens know about it, because that is current service level. So I agree, this was intended to be an a la carte. I do think it should be required that they offer the service, and then whether it's included in the base price or not, you know, that would be a choice in how the city agrees, you know, picks from the a la carte of the RFP. So yeah, Director DeAndrea, I looked at the motion too. This was supposed to be a la carte, not forced into the base price. It would be a nice thing to have, but this is going to drive up the price far more than the standard yard waste service.
Yes, I'm sorry. I just looked at the motions again, and you're right. It was a la carte, so my fault. So I will reword that.
So how are you thinking you'll reword it? So it'll be an a la carte option that they're required to provide an option for, and it would be 2 events per year per person on a particular day, or 2 tags per person that they could use when they have a large item. Because we did hear from at least one hauler that it would be easier if it was a tag-based system, so they don't have to do large items throughout the entire city all at once. They can just, when someone has a large item, they, you know, put in their notice that they have a large item and they use one of their tags, and then it gets picked up. I mean, I do think that makes more sense. It's better for citizens because they can use it when they need it. And I do think that if we could, you know, it would be a fantastic inclusion if that was part of the base thing, that each citizen had up to 2 a year and they roll over, et cetera. But, you know, the thing is, when you make an RFP like this and you make that an option, then they're going, and where they don't have to provide it, then they're going to price it to where it's not attractive or reasonable for the one that they don't want to do. Vice Chair Borman?
Yeah, I think we leave it as an option with, I like the idea of the tags because it did sound like they would be happier with our ability to, you know, because like if, I don't know, I replace a toilet or something like that or whatever, you know, that way I can put it out that one time, notify them, put the tag out there, you know, it goes away as necessary, without, you know, because if I replace the toilet in February and the next event's in August, you know, I've got a toilet sitting out in the alleyway or in the backyard, which might be an interesting fishbowl, but otherwise, you know, I think it's a worthwhile sort of thing for us to do the tags where people can elect when they use them. And then that way they also can let the haulers know, you know, not that I'd, you know, a bathtub, they probably would send out 3 people, but, you know, toilet, I can pick up myself. So,
yeah, it's better for citizens, better for hauler. In fact, here, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we change the large item bulk pickup part of the RFP to the hauler is required to offer large item pickup at the alley or curb for I guess now I'm going to kind of want, I guess I do want more discussion, because do we want to make it where the base price includes 2 tags per citizen, or do we want to make it, because that's when we, you know, actually get leverage benefit? Or if we just make it to where it's a price and they tell us what the price is, then that price is probably going to be pretty high. You know, personally, I don't care about this one. I don't want it to make the overall price high, but to a lot of citizens, it's probably a pretty important thing. Member Brinker?
I like the idea of having it as a menu option where we can get what the price will actually be and then decide if this is high enough value.
But you do get that if we made it required, then it would get a better deal, because they have to include, like, say we make it where they have to include 2 per citizen per year, and then beyond the 2 items per citizens per year, they have a price. Like, from a negotiating perspective, that's how you would get a better deal for citizens. If you just say, don't offer it or give us a price for it, they could just give us a huge price that nobody's going to want to go for. And then we're not even using our leverage as a city to get a better deal for citizens.
I feel like when we're looking at the spreadsheet way down below, you can put it right in the category of paid service, or you can put it below that where they tell us how much it's going to cost for 2 free tags per resident. And I think that cost would be the same, but in one, and if it's part of the base price, it's the committee saying for sure this is going to happen, it's part of the base service. And if it's lower down, then we could actually consider as part of our menu.
Director DeAndrea, can you bring up the part that Member Brinker is referring to? Because I'm not really, like, I've looked at it, but I don't understand it quite the way she's describing it. I think it would help to understand the pricing model.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Let me pull that up.
I'm still suggesting that we keep on there that people that have additional items pay for those items separate.
So the way I'd set it up, can you guys see my screen? It's now a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that if we did this with the large item pickup event, 2 events per year, that you could put out in one event, each event, you could have 10 bags of garbage, 3 of these listed items, and 10 yard waste bundles. So grass clippings, branches, whatever. Then I also requested a price. So just, let's say you have extra, like the extra tags or the extra bags, that we would have a price per bag. If you wanted to pick up a sofa, bag of debris. And then I think I had down here extra yard waste as well. So that's the way I had it set up. So I think if we went to, oh, pardon me?
And then also, can you scroll up after you're done with your thought? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Can you scroll up to the previous page that has the base service?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so line 11.
Okay.
Is where it's included in the base service. And I was suggesting, if we want to go this way, moving line 11, cutting it out of there and putting it further down in this list on the same page.
I see.
It wouldn't be part of the base service. It would be an option that us as a committee could consider including or not once we actually get the prices on it.
And my point is that it forces them to I'm looking at it from a negotiation perspective. If you make it separate and they don't want to do it, they just put a big price on it. But if we make it part of the base service, then this applies to anything, not just this. Like I said, I don't care about this so much, but I know a lot of citizens do. And if it's required to be in the base service, it makes them have to figure out a way to include it. It's putting it on them to make it to be more competitive. If we put it separate only, then they just price it high because they don't want to do it.
Are you still thinking we as a committee could take it out once we do get the bids?
What do you mean?
Say that it's where it is now and it stays there. and say it's a really, 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 really high cost, and we decide that we need to trim, and we trim it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have my hand raised.
Go ahead.
All right. So I would lobby for leaving it in because 18%, as Officer Lewis said, about 18% of the population calls them. And so they don't even know how many people dump mattresses and stuff. They just know they get about, of all their complaints, they get about 18% of the public. Now, the price to get rid of a couch is anywhere from $75 to $100. So in effect, citizens are already paying it. And if we have everybody sharing the cost of this large item pickup in a bulk, in a base level, we do a couple of things. Of course, we all share the cost, and it might make citizens just a little more vigilant in their alleys, watching for guys driving around dumping their washer and dryer. So I'm thinking about what Christine says. Right now we can get this price, and then if this contract is just so high, we can come back and do it again. But we do have a problem to solve for citizens, and that is the dumping of large items. And it can be, sometimes it's a $500 bill, because they're not just dropping one mattress. Back here in my alley, they dropped 3 mattresses on a citizen. I just lucked out that they didn't pick my property. It was very random. It's not like it's one guy who's doing all this construction work and woohoo, he gets his construction materials hauled away. That probably falls outside of the scope of this work anyway. I think that's covered in building permits. They have to have their stuff. That's another discussion. But really, my point being that I do want to keep working on solving the problem of dumping large items, and I think leaving it in the base price does that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Member Hoepke. Vice Chair Borman?
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of torn on taking it out or leaving it in there, because I understand your point, Chair Green, about the possibility that they could just super jack the price so that it makes it untenable to us. But it might actually make sense too that we leave it in the base price level, partially because I just happened to notice that we had the possibility of it might solve our 2 problems where you were concerned about the yard waste, because they could pick up to 10 bags of yard waste. Does that make you feel any better?
Use that for the fall. Day? That makes sense. I like your perspective there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I got a motion. You guys ready?
Ready.
All right. I move that we keep the large item bulk waste pickup in the base price, not as an event, but as a not as an event in that it only happens on a certain day, but as a 2 event per citizen per year tag system. So it's the same things you have, what they can use in an event, and they get 2 of them that they schedule with the hauler. So they would, through their website or email or whatever the process is, they have 2 times they can do that included in the base price, which the haulers said would be easier, and we know it's better for citizens. So can you get a motion out of that? Or should I start over?
Just to clarify, Chair Green, so when you say each event, you would be allowed to have per event, per household, 10 bags and 3 of these items and 10 bundles of yard waste?
Yes.
Okay.
So as you have it defined, each person gets that twice a year, but when they schedule it, not everybody all at once.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so that motion's out. Is there a second?
Hallelujah. I'll second.
I'll second.
All right. Will you please take a vote, Director DeAndrea?
Yes, and I had Member Kawanabe as the second on that.
Yes.
Is that correct? Okay. Chair Green?
Yes.
Vice Chair Borman?
Yes.
Member Brinker?
Yes.
Member Brown?
No.
Member Hubka?
Yes.
Member Labe?
Yes.
Member Kawanabe?
Yes.
Okay, that motion carries.
Okay, thank you. We are at 7:54, and I know that I have more notes on the rest of this, so I think we're going to have to continue this in our next meeting. And I also, personally, I'm being interviewed by City Council at 8:20, so I've got to be done by 8. Member Hubka, did you have something else or hands up?
Oh, no, sorry, that's lower my hand. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't know what we can get done in the next 6 minutes. Director DeAndrea, is there another part you could go over? Or let's close out this part of the meeting and we'll pick up at this point in our next meeting, if that's all right. And then let me get back on our agenda. Scheduling our next meeting. We haven't received it formally, but just putting this out there, I have personally been hearing from people who are frustrated with our meetings being during City Council study sessions. So, but I don't know what we could do about that. I mean, we've all been able to regularly meet every 2 weeks on this schedule. I'm not saying we should change it or shouldn't. I'm just sharing that I've gotten feedback that when I get feedback, I tell people, send emails to Director DeAndrea so it goes into the packet. I don't want to be a vessel for, the subset of public I deal with. But we haven't officially heard anything. So I'm just putting that out there. So as our current schedule, our next meeting would be on the 24th. Is that a City Council study session? Director DeAndrea, do you know?
It is, yes.
Okay. So I suggest we meet then, unless anyone wants to do it differently. Is there anyone who cannot meet then? Okay, let's have our next meeting be on the 24th. The same time. Chairperson's choice. I don't have anything. Committee members' choice. Anything?
Okay.
This other communications, did anyone want to talk about that? Did you want to say anything about it, Director DeAndrea? The city facility recycling?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up because I wasn't clear or wasn't 100% sure on what the requirement in our sustainability plan said. So I just provided that link for reference. So it does talk about that we need to encourage more recycling at city facilities. So basically by employees and at city events. So
right, and that I saw it's incorporated in the RFP as well. Mm-hmm. So we'll get to that when we get to that part. All right, then let's be adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks all.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night.
Thank you, guys.
See you next time.
Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.